Hi guys! So, I don't know if you can see them, probably can't, but the two small babies, they're sleeping in the top half of the castle like two little princesses in their tower waiting for somebody to save them. It's the cutest thing in the world. Check my Instagram if you want to see zoomed in photos, because they like do these little stretches and composure. Now let's get on to the review. This week we will be doing The Name of the Wind. So this is an epic fantasy with a pretty hard magic system. Definitely a different world to ours. A lot of magical races, magical creatures. But the magic is more seen as misunderstood science. But not science in the way that it's just like alchemy and its elements thrown together. Some of it definitely is very spiritual in nature, and you have mana or like willpower that can be taught and that some people just inherently have more of than others. So it's definitely more on the hard magic system side, very much leaning on hard magic, but there are elements of it that I would say are more soft magic, that the rules are a little bit fluid. Style and pacing. I have to say the style of this book is something different. It's not purple prose, but there are similes and metaphors that are so intrinsically tied to this world that it feels a little bit like it could only exist in this world, and it gives you a real tangible feeling of stepping into something new when you read this book, which I love. Then the pacing is something different as well. If you know about The Name of the Wind, then you've probably heard about the narrator. There's a large debate about whether or not this is an unreliable narrator, because at the beginning of the book we meet the hero, but not the hero before he became a hero, not the hero in the midst of battle. No, the hero is old, washed up, going through some type of midlife crisis. He's not that old, but he started kind of young, so he's much older than he was. He's already saved the world, everything's over, he is myth and legend, and he's now trying to hide himself. He's over it. He's done saving the world, he's done. All his stories have been told. And then a chronicler comes in, and he wants to come and write down the histories of Quoth the Great. And he wants to hear the full story. We are with him as he starts writing his biography. So that makes the pacing and the tension a little bit weird, because we know he's going to be okay. So it also causes kind of two plot lines, the present and then the past. And in the present, there's every now and then a little bit of something, some impending problem. But the real story, the real magic, the real adventure is in the past. And we know everything's going to be okay because he's here talking to us, having all his limbs and all his fingers and everything. So it's different. Sugar and vinegar. Sugar, definitely this prose. The main character is defined as a storyteller. His race are the people of stories, and he has charm and a wit, and the way he tells the stories, it really comes alive. And the metaphors they use are really things that make sense to this world. He didn't just take an idiom. He took an idiom, looked at the history of the world, looked at the situations, looked at how that situation might have been misinterpreted, and then he created an idiom from scratch. And for a while you think, oh, that's just a weird thing they say, like when characters in books swear by saying night, which is pretty common. But here, the idiom seems like nothing, and then in a little bit, we find out where it actually comes from. And it just feels like this world has so much depth because of the prose that it's different than anything I've ever had. And then, again, an audiobook, this one. The narration here is so varied with so many different accents, and some of those accents kind of difficult to understand. That's how thick they are. That I actually had to put my speed down to 1.6, where I usually listen at like 1.82, because the different characters sound different, and you can kind of hear from the accents where they come from after a while. And it's not like, oh, this is just British with a little bit of a twist. Completely, seemingly unique accents. I'm sure they have influence from somewhere, but it's not somewhere I can pinpoint. So it definitely felt like a whole new world stepping into this, and it's not for the world building because I don't know much about this world. It's about the prose. It's about the way the characters speak. They come from somewhere real and somewhere definitely different than the world we know. Then, Vinegar. I had some issues with the main character. My issues were not with his personality. My issues were with his consistency. So he's really young. At the beginning of the novel, he's like 3, 4, 5, and, well, the past part of the plot. And at the end, he's 15. And he's really inconsistent. Sometimes he acts like I would expect an 11-year-old to act, and sometimes he acts like he's 25. And it's jarring and it's frustrating. He was supposed to have learnt all this charisma, all these skills at the age of 10. And I'm like, no 10-year-old is this socially aware. And I'll get into it in spoilers because it's a lot of parts throughout different parts of the plot, but the character just felt inconsistent to me, and it was frustrating. You can't be a genius in one chapter and then 2 chapters later be a complete idiot in similar circumstances. In circumstances where skills that we know he has would have come in handy, and he's supposed to be this genius and he just didn't think about it. That really frustrated me. Don't set up a character as being really powerful and really smart and then ignore it when it's convenient. So, what did I think? Would I recommend this book? That's difficult. It's 3 stars for me. I didn't love it. The character got really annoying. Afterwards, I was like, I don't know. And then my next Audible credit came in, and I got the second one. I am currently reading The Wise Man's Fear, because I really got sucked in by the prose. It's not flowery, it's not overdramatic, it's just so unique. And the world seems so interesting to me. I was willing to deal with the characters to just spend a little more time here. So, the book as a standalone, would I recommend? Probably not. But if you're going to continue with the whole series, and so far I'm enjoying it, so I would recommend the series, but not the book on its own. So that's a weird recommendation. So I would say, if you're thinking about buying this book, read a bit first. Read a little bit of the prose. If the prose sticks to you and grabs you like it grabbed me, go for it. You're going to love it. It doesn't let up. It just gets better. If the prose doesn't speak to you, I don't know if there's enough there to keep you. Spoilers. The richness of the prose alludes to so much more in the story, but we just don't get to see it yet. We're very limited in the spaces that we get to really explore and travel at the beginning, because it's very much character focused. We are where this one character goes, and fantasy recently has had the sort of tendency to have multiple perspectives, which allows you to see multiple parts of the world. But this is very focused in on just Quoth and just his story. So we get one perspective, and then if he's in a shitty little town, you're stuck there. You get to hear about outside worlds and demons attacking and things, but you're not there. So as I said, it splits into 2 parts. There is the current plot, which is the present, and then there's the past. So, just briefly about the current plot, we spend the least time there. As I mentioned before, it's basically Quoth as a middle-aged man telling his story, and he is currently in hiding. And then there are some elements of some other impending doom and demonic uprisings, but it didn't really get my attention. It was actually kind of annoying every time we had to jump back to the present because it was boring in comparison. And this whole idea about, oh, he's going through a midlife crisis and his friends are trying to make him tell his stories to ignite the fire inside him again. I don't care. I didn't. It was really just annoying to me. So, let's get to the plot I liked and also had some issues with. So, this is Quoth's coming of age story that he's telling. So, because he's starting to explain his biography to the chronicler who's writing it down. So, he's telling from his birth. And he was in not a traveling circus, a traveling band of entertainers. But they were more than just musicians and actors. They had a lot more going for them. They were a whole troupe moving together. And that was fascinating for a while. It was really cool to... This is where the prose and stuff gets in. To hear the stories of this place and the music, the types of music they would listen to and the songs and what that alluded to. And, oh, they have some raunchy humor here and there, which works for me. And, yeah, I really enjoyed having those little bits by hearing everybody's stories. And then we get to the first time he learns magic. So he's young. He's like 8, 9, definitely under 11. So between 8, 9, and 10, he starts to learn magic. So they meet a tinker on the road, and he says, no, he's not a tinker. He's an arcanist. And that's basically their magicians. And he says, Quoth is such a bright young lad. Everybody's always telling Quoth how bright he is. So he teaches Quoth magic. He teaches him how to lift objects essentially with his mind. So you can link objects together. So if you lift this one, that one lifts up as well. And he teaches him about argumentation and philosophy and history. And Quoth is so sharp, he just picks things up like this. And his teacher keeps telling him how much better he is than many of the students at the university. And this is where the magicians go to learn magic. And he just get heaps on praise, and he's such a genius, and he almost kills himself. That's how powerful his ability to control magic and stuff has become. And you think, wow, we're going to deal with a proper character, and if this is the type of magic that exists in this world, we're going to face this type of magic. And I was all for it. And then he splits up with the tinker, and his whole family get brutally killed because all main characters need to be orphans. And I guess the drama here, it was okay. But then comes the bit that's really annoying. So after some time, he makes his way into a city, and he's alone, he's penniless, and all he has on his back is his father's loot, which is really precious to him. And then we're like, okay, but this is fine. He knows all the stories. He's an amazing musician. He has a lute with him. And he has all this arcane magic in his back pocket to use as he pleases. And then he gets bullied and trampled, and we have to watch him suffering for 4 years. And I'm just like, you literally know how to start a fire by thinking about it and causing like a chill to run up your arm. Are you kidding me? It frustrated the hell out of me. Like, I get it, we have to see our main character suffer to care about him. But then I have to believe that suffering is not his fault. If I have been told throughout the whole first couple of chapters how smart this little boy is, and how charming he is, how come he's lost it all? He's not charming. He's not smart. He rarely outsmarts people. If it happens, it's also just like really dumb people he outsmarts. He doesn't know how to work his way into better situations for himself. He's a normal beggar, as if there was nothing special about this boy at all. And I'm not saying he should have been able to rip himself out of those circumstances, but just a couple of places where it was shown that knowing all of this came to some little advantage. Even if he could just start his own fire at night, that would have been enough for me. But it's like he became a complete different character for a couple of chapters just so he could suffer. And I didn't like that. Just a quick contrast to prove my point. Lyra Belacqua from the Golden Compass is resourceful, has a silver tongue, and there's a lot less to set up how smart and charismatic she should be than Quoth's entire history of being trained all his life. And yet she just achieves so much more. I was really frustrated by his incompetence. I was yelling the whole time, stop being an idiot. Just use your magical powers. But in the end, he sorts himself out, and at the ripe young age of 15, he goes to the university. And he has a couple of coins in his pocket. That's a thing that I really liked. He's poor throughout most of the book, and money is on his mind the whole time because he's poor. Every time he has a couple of jots in his pocket, which is one of their currencies, then it means a lot to him. And we have a sense of how much work it takes to actually get money. So I really like that part of the story. But then he's here, and he, all of a sudden, when he steps into the university, he changes again. He has charm, he has charisma, and every time that charisma is used, he references it that he remembers what his father used to be like. So I'm going to put a photo up here of what an 8-year-old boy looks like. 8, 10, 11. I'm sorry. How is this kid supposed to have remembered what charming is from this age? Just like I know children. It doesn't matter how spectacularly charming his dad is. He is not going... It's not a skill that trickles down that easily. He's not going to know how to do this. And to remember everything from that time, stories and songs I can understand. But charm and personality, that's not natural that he's putting on? I don't know, ne. We've seen child actors, right? Yeah, we've seen them. No, I just don't do that. Make him inherently charming by himself. Maybe. I don't know. I got really annoyed by that because it was just like, it felt as if the author was... It felt as if all that trauma was just to make me be okay with all that's happening now. And I felt as if I was being manipulated. I think that's the right thing. It just felt wrong. It felt like lies. Somewhere there's a lie here. Either he isn't 15 now. Once again, this is a 15-year-old. Also not the most witty, charming, genius people on the planet. And dealing with hormones on top of that. But we're supposed to believe that he remembered all this from 4 years ago when he was a child? From watching his parents? No. If we get into character, I think I've kind of already explained what my frustration is here. He's really inconsistent. And I know it might seem nitpicky, but if I'm spending all day and all night with this kid, I need to believe in him. I need to believe the emotions that he's going through, and I need to believe what he does. And it just, 2 and 2 isn't adding up here. Because sometimes I would describe Quoth as being smart, charming, self-sufficient, a genius, a quick thinker, really, really fast on his feet, really witty, really ranchy humor, like a person that feels real. And then sometimes he's just this bumbling idiot that is it frustrated the hell out of me every time he would achieve something that I didn't think was realistic, or fail at something which I thought he would have no trouble succeeding at. So the way the character was built up, and then what the character actually did with those skills that were built up, it was just incongruent. And overall, at the university and with the girls, we hear his inner monologue, and we hear that he has no idea what's going on. He's naive, he is unaware of social situations, and then the dialogue that comes out of his mouth is this witty, charming, just suave character that it just doesn't fit. So then we get to the debate that's been happening online about this character, about whether or not Quoth is an unreliable narrator. Because we know he's telling his own story explicitly, and we know his character. He's a good storyteller, he's boastful, and he knows that people love an underdog. So maybe that's why sometimes he doesn't know what to say and yet says the right thing, almost on accident. The arguments against it are based on authorial intent, which you know I don't like, and also it simply isn't done. Unreliable narrators as a device are really rare. They aren't common, and it does expect more of the reader than most mainstream literature would, because it does expect you to take into account, as you're learning about the character from the character, who he is. Because in most stories, how do you know who a character is? What he does, what he says, and what other people say about him. Problem is, here we only get one. We get what he says he does, what he says other people say about him, and what he says he said. So essentially, we only get a third of the necessary evidence for characterization, which inherently makes it a lot more interesting. I don't know if I would have been completely sold on this unreliable narrator based on only the first book. But as I'm now reading into the second book, I have to say there's a fair bit more evidence. I won't get into it now, but I do think there's something behind it. And I do think it makes for a better story. It forces the reader to be active, to be analyzing, and I kind of want it to be the case. I kind of want him to be an unreliable narrator, because it makes this already deep, rich text so much deeper. It makes that prose that alludes to more powerful, because now there's a character that alludes to more, to secrets. He's vulnerable in his telling of his life, but only to a certain extent. And even if only a handful of lies have crept in, I think it makes it much more interesting. It makes you wrestle with the text, and I'm happy this debate is going on. And I will be back soon to review The Wise Man's Fear as soon as I'm finished. And I really hope the author doesn't throw a J.K. Rowling out there and say, no, Quoth was completely truthful the whole time. Because no, don't take this away from me. I'm enjoying the struggle. Yeah, so that was that. If you have read this book or you know about the debate, please talk to me about it. Tell me what you think. I know a little bit to the end there, I snuck in some of my ideas about the second book. But it's more a discussion, really. So please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you soon. Ta-ta!